assist with any issues that you may be having, or any comments that may need to be directed to her. However, we do ask that if it is not a RAD related comment, that you speak with Ms. Glenn offline. Her information will be provided during the presentation. And I think with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan so we can get started with the presentation.
Thanks, LaShawn.
Thank you.
Everyone. My name is Jonathan Rogers. I'm a development project manager with OCP in our Office of Capital Programs. It's good to be here with you tonight, and thank you for taking the time out of your days to hear about the Melvo Rental Assistance Demonstration Project that includes the Ontario property, and I'll explain in a minute what Melvo is. Next slide, please. Just wanted to start off with a statement of DCHA's mission. What we strive to do every day is to preserve, manage, and develop quality, affordable housing to extremely low through moderate income households. We also foster sustainable communities and cultivate human capital opportunities for residents to improve their lives. Next slide, please. Here's today's agenda, just a run of show, so you know what to expect from today. We do have a brief presentation that outlines the items you see on your screen. I want to provide a quick introduction of DCHA staff. You've already met LaShawn. We have a variety of DCHA staff here from all across the agency representing different disciplines. So we are here tonight to after we're done with our presentation, listen to your questions and concerns and provide responses. We have representation from property management, Office of General Counsel, other folks from Office of Capital Programs, resident services, relocation, really the full gambit of what DCHA offers. So we are here and available for you. I want to share with you some information about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, talk about why we're considering and pursuing RAD for the Melvo project, as well as present some information about the RAD program itself. We'll talk about Melvo as overall as a project. Melvo, I'll go ahead and explain now, stands for Montana, Elvins, Lincoln, Villager, and Ontario Road. These are 5 DCHA properties that we are bundling together into a single RAD project. And I'll explain a little bit more about that. We'll include an overview of the relocation process, walk through with you the services that we offer to residents through our Office of Resident Services. A lot of good programming and offerings there. We'll talk about upcoming resident engagement and share a little bit about COVID-19, how that is impacting our normal resident engagement efforts and the accommodations we're making to make sure that we can share information, but do so in a safe way given COVID. And we'll talk about next steps. At that point, we'll pause and see if anyone else has joined us for roll call and attendance, and then we'll open up the floor to questions and responses. Next slide, please. So why apply for HUD's RAD program? Why are we talking about a RAD project here for the Melvo properties, including Ontario? There's a basic fact out there that the federal government is not providing enough funding to make improvements at the public housing properties that residents of public housing properties deserve. We are seeing over time significantly fewer funds, capital funds coming to public housing authorities to allow us to invest that money into keeping properties in a state of good repair, making sure that things are clean and working well. At the same time, given the age of our housing units and properties, the needs for capital improvements are increasing, and so you sort of have these two trains going in opposite directions of increasing need and fewer resources from the federal government. So what that's resulting in for DCHA, as an example of just one public housing authority across the country, is a capital needs of about $2.5 billion. That's with a B, billion, across our housing portfolio. So that's sort of leaving us to think, what are other sources with the federal government providing increasingly fewer resources? How do we adapt and still make important improvements at our properties so that you, as residents of public housing, are getting the quality of housing that you deserve? Well, that leads us to RAD. RAD is a program offered through HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, that provides more sustainable funding choices for public housing authorities, and allows public housing authorities to improve public housing properties by converting those properties to a project-based Section 8 contract and funding stream rather than a traditional Section 9 public housing model. And I'll explain a little bit more about that on the coming slides. Next slide, please. The RAD program, in essence, provides a more stable funding source for public housing authorities to invest into their properties, as I mentioned. This program comes with the requirement of any project being converted to RAD, that the property, the building improvements must be built to last for an extended period of time. The RAD requirements are that properties converting to RAD be sustainable at a 20-year viability. So what does this mean? This means that all important building components, roofs and floors and structural issues, as well as kitchens and bathrooms and systems like heating and air conditioning, all have to be brought up to a high level, a high quality that's really meant to last 20 years, so that the property can remain in a state of good repair, remain a place that people will be proud and to live in, and provide good quality housing for public housing residents. So that idea of 20-year viability, I'll keep coming back to that because that's driving a lot of the choices and requirements in terms of the renovation scope of work, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. So RAD really provides that additional funding source and the requirement to upgrade properties to a 20-year viability, and it comes with some important components too, and tenant protections, and those include no resident displacement. There's an absolute right to return, no loss of housing benefits, and no change in rent calculation. So that will, as it is today, it's calculated at 30% of income. Even after a RAD transaction, the calculation will be the same in terms of what rents will be charged to residents of public housing. Next slide, please. A few facts about RAD. So RAD stands for Rental Assistance Demonstration. HUD, sort of seeing the same realities that we at a local public housing authority are seeing, crafted this federal program as a response to fill the growing gap between the decreasing federal funding and the increasing capital needs of public housing units. So that's those two trains kind of going in opposite directions. They saw the same thing. They said, we need to offer some resources to public housing authorities to be able to make improvements that is not a traditional federal contribution of capital funds. What RAD does is it allows public housing authorities to move away from sort of that traditional Section 9 public housing contribution to a Section 8 project-based voucher. This makes it possible for public housing authorities to obtain funding from private and alternative sources or non-federal sources to be able to invest those funds back into the property to meet the capital needs of those properties. Next slide, please. for those following on the printout, we're now on the slide, how does RAD work? So how does RAD work? RAD essentially allows public housing authorities to work with partners who want to invest in buildings and building improvements. Resources and new avenues that RAD opens up from a financing and partner perspective the RAD program allows public housing authorities to borrow money for the improvements, so taking out loans, seeking bond issuance for the improvements, working with philanthropic partners, so nonprofit organizations and others that are seeking to invest in the community. And it also allows DCHA to take on development partners or investors. Next slide, please. So what we've just covered is information about the RAD program itself, the HUD program that we're taking advantage of and advancing the Melva project through. I now want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the Melvo project overall. As I said at the outset, Melvo is one single RAD project comprised of 5 DCHA properties: Montana, Elvins, Lincoln, Villager, and Ontario. We understand that you, as residents of Ontario, your experience is as a resident of Ontario, and perhaps you're less concerned with what's going on at the other properties. But we did want to provide the full context of the overall project that DCHA is advancing the Ontario renovations through. And so I've got just a few slides to help illustrate that. On the screen in front of you, you can see a map here with all 5 of the Melvo projects on the map. Ontario, of course, is in the upper left-hand corner and marked by the yellow icon on the screen. Next slide, please. Slide 9. All the 5 properties within the Melva project are fairly small in terms of unit count. They range from the smallest, which is Ontario, small but mighty. I think you may agree. And the largest is 64 units at Montana. Elvins, Lincoln, and Villager are all around 19 or 20 units. The unit composition across the properties tends to skew slightly towards the larger end. Lots of 2s and 3 bedrooms, and a fair amount of 1s and 4s to go along with that. We have overall a lot of families across the Melvo project, and I just wanted to call that out. The relative small size of each of the properties is actually the reason why DCHA is advancing advancing the 5 properties together under a single DCHA-led RAD project. And really that allows us to take advantage of some efficiencies and economies of scale to be able to make improvements across all 5 properties. And if you'll excuse me for 1 second, my dog is just needing to be let out of the room. I'll be right back. The joys of working from home. Apologies for that. So just to reiterate what I was just saying is we're availing ourselves of some efficiencies and economies of scale to advance all 5 properties together and transform them through a meaningful renovation under the RAD project. Next slide, please. As you'll see on the coming slides, we still have a number of things that we need to do to advance the project, but we have already completed many key milestones for the project, and I'd just like to highlight what some of those are. If what I'm saying tonight is sounding familiar and you kind of remember DCHA being out before talking about renovations and potentially RAD and a bundled project, it's because we have been out to talk with residents about this in the past. In 2015 and 2018, we did have several rounds of resident meetings. So that's the reason this may sound familiar to you. Now that we've gotten to a certain point along the project development, you'll be seeing a lot more of us as we ramp up the project. So just wanted to make that clear as well. Other key milestones are we received board approval from the DCHA board in order to advance the Melvo project. Specific things that were authorized by the board are to begin pre-development work, so some of the planning work, and I'll get into some of those details, to explore financing options, and generally to advance several sort of early stage components of the Melvo RAD transaction. From HUD, we've received an important early approval for commitment for housing assistance payment. So that's a good sign. We're advancing through the HUD approval process. One of the pre-development activities that I was referencing just a minute ago was sort of a foundational exercise, which is completing a capital needs assessment at each of the properties. So what does this mean? This means going in and doing a very detailed a detailed survey of each of the properties, and understanding what improvements are needed to bring properties up to the 20-year viability. So there's that old theme again, the 20-year viability. We needed to understand what's the state of the building and the facilities currently, and then what improvements are needed in order to hit that 20-year viability requirement. Based on that assessment, we developed architectural plans, working with a professional architect, come up with building designs that incorporate the capital needs. And then we're taking those plans now, and currently we've got conversations and this active solicitation underway with a general contractor who would actually come in and construct the improvements. All along in the background here, we're developing cost estimates, and that is leading and informing our project structure and the financing approach, which I'll talk about in a few slides. Next slide, please. So I've just been talking about the Melvo project overall, and you're probably wondering, well, what does that mean for Ontario? So let's talk about that. There is a renovation associated with the RAD transaction, and again, this is to bring the property up into a 20-year viability. And so I'd like to share with you now the scope of improvements that are coming to Ontario in association with the RAD conversion. This is a graphic on slide 11 of the facade of Ontario Road that our architect developed, and it is meant to be illustrative of some of the improvements that are coming to the site. Some of the things you'll see is new numbering, new awning, and things that may or may not show up on this rendering are some brickwork and other things like that. And I'll get into more detail now of the scope of improvements. Next slide, please. So what we're talking about generally is a fairly kind of mid-range renovation. This is certainly more than filling walls and holes and slapping some paint on, and this is certainly not a full gut job renovation where we're changing the building footprint and making a whole bunch of physical improvements. What we're doing is we're taking the current space and upgrading it through on the interior, new kitchens and bathrooms, which I know are big ticket items, and hopefully you'll like what you'll see on the next slide. Remodeled lobby and laundry room. We are doing, of course, the wall repair and painting and cleaning of air ducts. There on the outside will be the new canopy, which we already talked about, new windows and additional site lighting. Next slide, please. Here are just a few perspectives of some of the areas that are going to be improved. On the left-hand side of the screen, a couple different views of a remodeled kitchen. These aren't necessarily exactly the finishes that you'll expect to see, but really just meant to demonstrate the components of the kitchen that are going to be improved. And so everything you see in terms of new flooring, new cabinetry, new backsplash and countertop, new appliances and lighting, those are all things that are going to be part of the kitchen renovation. On the right-hand side, there's a perspective showing what the new lobby, renovated lobby, will look like. So you can see, spiffed up floors, new paint, and lighting, and generally just a facelift to that lobby area. As I mentioned earlier, the laundry room will also is another example of a common area that will see investment and renovation. Next slide, please. Now, transitioning a little bit from the renovation specific to Ontario and back to the Melva project as a whole, these renovations have a cost to them, and I wanted to share some of the general approach of the funding sources that we're taking advantage of to be able to make the renovations a reality. One of the things we're pursuing is a HUD-approved tool called a RAD Section 18 blend. What this does is it allows DCHA to do a sort of a split of the assumed rents as in the form of income to DCHA that we can then reinvest into the property. 25% of the units would be converted under a Section 18 disposition. The other 75 would be converted under a RAD, typical RAD transaction. What that does is allows sort of a bump beyond, in addition to, in excess of the RAD rents that we can get for the units. And so that's just an additional bump, additional source of funds that will increase our renovation budget. What's important for sort of you as residents in your experience of a RAD, straight RAD project compared to a RAD Section 18 blend is essentially there's no difference. This really is just a sort of a financing tool that HUD is available, and it does not diminish residents' rights as described in the resident information notice that you should have received within the last few weeks. It will also not affect residents differently compared to a conventional RAD conversion. Next slide. Another source of funding that we're pursuing is 4% low-income housing tax credits. What these do are allow DCHA to finance improvements to stabilize the property for long-term viability. You'll see sort of a diagram of how this plays out in terms of the structure of the Melvo transaction. But essentially what we do is we bring on a tax credit investor who purchases the tax credits, and then they are part of sort of the structure of the transaction. And there's a 15-year compliance period for associated with using housing tax credits. And what that means is basically a requirement that the property remain as a affordable housing property for 15 years. In the district, there's an additional 15-year requirement so 30 years total for ensuring that the property is an affordable housing unit. And then in addition, there's a RAD use agreement, which is recorded against the property records as another form of assurance that the property remain as an affordable housing property. Next slide, please. So here's a quick diagram of the transaction structure that I was just referencing. Above DC Housing Solutions, you have DCHA. So can't put my fingers on this graphic, but above DC Housing Solutions is DCHA. DC Housing Solutions is a 501c3 nonprofit entity underneath DCHA. Capital Housing Partners LLC is beneath DC Housing Solutions, and then the two direct entities within the ownership structure, which you see there at the bottom of the slide, is Melvo GP LLC, which is general partner underneath. You trace it all the way back to the top, DCHA, and then on the right-hand side, you'll see Wells Fargo Affordable Housing Community Development Corporation, who's the tax credit investor. What this all means for you in terms of your day-to-day experience and with the property is that DCHA will continue to manage and be your day-to-day resource and after the RAD transaction. So your experience, you won't have to memorize the slide or anything like that. You'll still work through DCHA. DCHA will be managing and taking care of the property for you. Next slide, please. Wanted to share now project timeline. So here we are today in September. We are doing a round of a round of resident engagement. There is this meeting this evening, and then specific to Ontario, and then another meeting in 2 weeks in the afternoon, also focused on Ontario. The same information will be shared at both meetings. The meeting in 2 weeks is just another opportunity for you and your neighbors to hear about the project. If you've attended tonight, like I said, the information will be the same in 2 weeks. You're certainly more than welcome to attend, but just know that the information will be the same. We're also going out and doing 2 meetings at each of the other 4 Melville properties and customizing those meetings for their scope of improvements of the renovation at those properties. We will be back talking with you prior to the financing plan being submitted to HUD, which we anticipate later this year. And then we'll be back out again prior to project closing. We'll give and project closing is sort of when all the planning work is done. We're up at the point where we're ready to start construction. We will provide additional notice at that point. The rest of the picture, we are still working through the details on in terms of construction beginning. We anticipate that will be in early 2021. And we estimate that the overall completion across all 5 Melville projects, that the construction will take about 18 months. But we also know that renovations will be phased over time. So that phasing remains something to be determined in coordination with the general contractor that we will be bringing on board. So this is an example of some information that we will be coming back to you with as the picture becomes clearer on construction, the phased construction. And then also another important point is we do know that short-term relocation will be needed as part of the renovation. Just given the type of work that we're talking about here with new kitchens and baths, it's not a type of work that we want our residents to have to live through. And you know, in their units, there's a lot of dust. You won't have the bathrooms and kitchens operable. So we do expect that short-term relocation will be needed while the work is happening within the units. And we'll talk more about that in this presentation, and then be back in the future to share additional information as it becomes available. Yeah, that we will be certainly in contact with you on the relocation needs. Next slide, please. So this is a good time now to talk about what your rights are as a resident under the RAD program and under HUD. You have, as part of the RAD program, a guaranteed right to return to the property, this property, Ontario. So if you are currently in the property and you have an absolute right to return after the RAD conversion without rescreening. We also provide full relocation assistance. On the slide here, it says if you need to temporarily move during construction. As I just mentioned, we do anticipate that there will be a need to temporarily relocate during construction. Resident councils will continue to be funded in the same way. And as I talked about at the outset of the meeting, rents will continue to be calculated based on the same calculation as they are today, which is 30% of adjusted income. Next slide, please. So let's talk about relocation. We understand and really take seriously that relocation can be a disruption to you and your families. And so we are we take that very seriously, and we want to try to minimize the impacts of relocation to you as much as possible. And so we're doing that through two ways. One is really minimizing that relocation time period, so and which is directly tied to the amount of time that the construction will take. And so we're working very closely and very seriously with the general contractors to make sure that construction is completed as quickly as possible, and therefore relocation is minimized as much as possible. Another thing that we want to that we'd like to do and offer in order to make relocation as minimally impactful to you as possible is to offer a full suite of relocation services. And my colleague, Ms. DeBoer Jackson, will be on in a minute, and I apologize if you hear my dog. Let me shut the door. I guess she's ready to come back. 1 second. Sorry about that. We will talk about the full suite of relocation services that we offer to make that as easy as a process as possible. At the current moment, we're still developing relocation plans. Again, that's going to be informed by the construction schedule, and DCHA is working through the details of what that relocation plan looks like. We are looking at options for where that relocation will take place. It's possible that those could include vacant units within the Melville project, potentially other DCHA properties within our portfolio, and then also hotels at the discretion of DCHA as a potential option for the site of relocation. Unfortunately, there are no additional housing choice vouchers available for the relocation. And I want to point out that families will be relocated together, and certainly we will not be splitting up families as part of that relocation. And as we work through the details and develop the relocation plan in further detail, we will certainly provide updates as the project advances and work closely with you. Ms. Jackson's going to talk about it in a minute, but we really want to understand what your specific needs are, right down to the level of, do you have a dog who likes to bark during your meetings, and you need to be relocated to a place where that's pet friendly? Do you have children? If so, where do they go to school? And making sure we're trying to keep in as close proximity as possible to make your lives during the relocation as easy as possible. So next slide, my colleague, Ms. DeBoer Jackson, is going to take over and talk about the relocation process and our offerings.
Thank you, Jonathan. My name is Deborah Jackson. Some of you might recognize my name. I used to be your community navigator about 2 years ago. And so I look forward to working with you guys again as we look to do this renovation. So like Jonathan said, DCHA's relocation team works in partnership with residents about future development and relocation plans, which include informing residents on phasing and scheduled move dates. So at this time, like we're doing now, we're talking to you about the upcoming move dates and upcoming plans. Number 2, after renovation schedules are finalized and impacted, residents have been informed. DCHA's relocation team completes relocation surveys to assess special needs and circumstances. So like Jonathan said, we're going to come to you individually depending on where we are with COVID. It will either be on the phone or, depending on the situation with COVID, socially distanced surveys. And we're not going to do this out in the open. It'll be a one-on-one survey. So we can really ask you questions that are specific to you and your situation. So again, maybe you would need grab bars in your bathroom. Maybe you need a special accommodations that you haven't applied for, things like that. So we know that when we're placing you in these units, you're going to be as comfortable as you were in your own unit. So number 3, DCHA's relocation team will work with each household to prepare for relocation, provide necessary packing materials, and notify households of upcoming move dates. So again, don't go back to your unit today and decide that you're going to start packing up your unit, because we're just not there yet. But you might want to look around and decide you want to declutter your unit and get rid of some things. But we will supply all the packing materials, boxes, things to wrap your dishes in, tape. And then, we will let you know way ahead of time when you need to start packing to prepare for your move. Katrina Jeter and Brittany Holloway are my teammates in this project, and they will be the relocation coordinators, and they will call you guys to schedule that. Number 4, DCHA's relocation team will be present on the day of your move to supervise activity and ensure all relocation needs are satisfied. So again, you're never alone in this process. So I want to, make sure that any anxiety that you guys have, to let you guys know that we will be there on the day that you guys are moved to your other unit. Just in case there's a little hiccup in the road, Brittany or Katrina or myself will be there to assist you on that day. Number 5. DCHA's relocation team will hire a quality moving company to move families. Services include the moving of belongings, dismantling and reassembling of furniture, and packing assistance if applicable. So again, if you will look around your unit and you've been there for quite some time and you've, gotten somebody to put maybe a shelf up or pictures up and you cannot get them down, those are things that we're going to ask you at step 2 when we do your survey. Do you need assistance with packing? So again, if you cannot do it, don't stress. We're going to be here every step of the way to kind of walk you through it and prepare you for this move. And last but not least, DCHA's relocation team will relocate families from current unit to temporary or permanent units where applicable, pay relocation costs, and stay in touch with the families. What we mean by stay in touch with the families is when you move to another unit, whether it's a temporary unit or a hotel, depending on how long you're going to be out of your unit, we'll let you know how long that you're going to stay in that unit. If there's the process of construction, you never know, could take longer, could take shorter. So we're going to always make sure we communicate with you every step of the way. So I look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you very much. Jonathan, back to you.
Thanks, Deborah. And I think one detail that I think I neglected to mention is sort of our anticipated duration for the relocation. So let me, and if this is repeating, I apologize, but I believe I did not include this important information, but the relocation duration is really something we expect to be measured in weeks based on the scope of the improvements and not measured in months and certainly not years. So, in terms of the duration of the relocation, we are expecting it to be on the shorter end of the spectrum, and then that is a detail that we will continue to work out as we advance the general contractor and understand the schedule better. So we'll be in touch on that. So I wanted to make sure I hit on that. Next up on the next slide, I believe Ms. Zoe Rich is going to talk about the services that we offer through our Office of Resident Services.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zoe Rich, FSS Coordinator for the Family Self-Sufficiency Program. I am here to give you a brief overview of the in-house services that Resident Services provide. Workforce development at the Southwest Family Enhancement Center, intake assessment, job development orientation, specialized training, employment, Section 3. They also partnership with UDC, providing virtual classes during COVID-19. Financial literacy. We engage our residents with webinars that address the importance of financial decisions and understanding the building blocks of financial stability. How to use financial tools to achieving goals and managing money, credit, and debit. Home ownership, referral services to Lydia's House, housing counseling services, Latino economics, and for those residents to become homeowners, we too provide webinars that address making good financial decisions. Are you ready and in position financially to afford a new home? How to raise your credit score and managing a monthly budget. To ensure our safety as well as our residents, due to COVID-19, we provide virtual classes with our nonprofit agencies who are presenters engaging our residents with resourceful information to becoming homeowners. The Family Self-Sufficiency Program offers the following pathway incentives, which are education, employment, and homeownership. We provide case management assigned to FSS coordinators, referral services, credit counseling, financial literacy, homeownership preparation, and employment services. FSS is a 5 to 7 year program with intermediate goals and monetary incentives with the completion of the program. Eligible residents are required to complete an application, orientation, and to complete a contractual agreement into the FSS program. We are currently enrolling for our pathway incentive for homeownership with the income of $32,000. If you are interested, please contact your community navigator, Dorothy Freeman Gabbard. With that being said, your community navigator are the boots on the ground in the community, and through outreach, residents are educated about property levels, DCHA citywide services, programs, and resources. Your community navigator, once again, is Dorothy Freeman Gavin. Her number is 202-770-9093, and her email is dfgarvin@dchousing.org. If you are interested in any of the services or questions, please contact Mrs. Garvin, your community navigator, with any of your requests, and she will email me. Thank you for your time and attention. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And I will actually put her information in the chat box. Thank you. Jonathan?
Great, thank you. Wanted to share some information now about upcoming RAD resident engagement, what you can expect from us in the future. I've already mentioned we'll hold a similar meeting to the one that we're holding right now in 2 weeks during the afternoon of, I think it's the 24th. We will also be back, as I said earlier, later this year to hold an additional meeting with residents before submitting the financing plan. At that point, we'll provide any updated information we have. The topics we anticipate including in that meeting are confirming the financing and structure with additional detail, any updates to the renovation plans that we may have, and then importantly, any additional information we have about the construction timeline, construction phasing, and the relocation that's associated with those things. We will hold other meetings as necessary. If plans change or if we need an extension from HUD, we will keep you posted. So this is the beginning of the process in terms of when you'll be seeing more of us as we ramp up to complete the planning phase and then work towards construction. All throughout this engagement, DCHA will ensure effective communication with persons with disabilities and language barriers. So this means making meetings available to residents with various types of disabilities, as well as complying with the DC language access laws. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to ask LaShawn to talk a little bit about how COVID-19 is impacting our resident engagement.
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan, and good evening again, everyone. Of course, these meetings we would love to be able to have with you all in person as we have typically done. But due to the COVID-19 and pandemic and with DC being under an emergency order, we do have to hold these meetings virtually. So we just want to thank everyone for joining virtually. We know that this is a slightly different manner in which we've done in the past, but we still are following some of the same protocol in terms of maintaining an attendance log. We're also making sure that we are accommodating residents that have limited English proficiency and also complying with ADA. So we've taken all of those types of measures just to make sure that we've reached out and engaged and to make sure that we've been able to put on these virtual meetings and try to make them as seamless as possible. And you should have gotten calls before this meeting, and you'll also get calls after the meeting just to follow up, just to make sure that your access to this meeting was easy and that you are able to ask the questions or get the answers or provide comment to whatever questions you may have. And Jonathan, I think in the next slide, we'll just talk a little bit about next steps in terms of how we'll also be following up and engaging with you. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, LaShawn. Absolutely. So here's what you can expect from us and what you can expect for next steps. We will be following up and sending you written answers to questions posed before and at this meeting. And we'll open up the floor to questions in just a minute here. This is our last content slide here, and then we'll listen to you. Residents can also, as LaShawn was saying, expect to receive an additional phone call and flyer about our next meeting on the 24th of September. Again, that meeting will be in the afternoon and cover the same material that was discussed today. You are certainly welcome to attend that next meeting on September 24th, knowing that it's covering the same content. I also want to make sure that you have some important contact information. For questions regarding the property specifically, please contact your property manager, Dorothy Glenn, who I believe is on. Yes, she is on the line here. Her phone number is 202-439-3051. Any questions about relocation? Katrina Jeter is the point of contact. Her phone number is 202-926-7004. And then DCHA has also set up a general hotline for any questions related to RAD or the overall transformation plan. The phone number for that is 202-996-8526. You can also email at transformationplan, one word, at dchousing.org. And I'll also make sure that I put my contact information in the chat. Any questions about the RAD conversion, the RAD project, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And with that, we'll conclude the formal presentation. We are looking forward to working with you on this important initiative and bringing about a nice renovation to the project, to Ontario, as well as the other 4 Melville properties. And again, thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Jonathan, and thank you to all the presenters. Before we get started with the Q&A period, just want to go back and try to capture the names of the residents or folks that have entered the meeting who we didn't capture the names. So because I can only see the first 6 digits of your telephone number, I'm going to call out the first six digits of your telephone number, and I'll unmute you, and then we'll be able to capture your name from there. All right, so I have a 202531. Can you provide your name? You're unmuted. If your number begins with 202531. And if you would like to share your name for the attendance record, please let us know. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and mute that line and try another line. And this is also how we'll facilitate Q&A. Just as an FYI, I'll read the names of the folks that I have on from the attendance log, and then we'll go back and open it up to anyone that I may have omitted. So, which is why it's important for us to try to capture your name. 202926, you're unmuted.
This is Katrina Jeter.
Oh, okay. Hey, Katrina, thank you. All right, I'm just gonna put your name in here so I won't call on you again. Okay, thank you, Ms. Jeter. And then I have a 202627. You are unmuted. Hi, caller with the number 202627. Yes, we can hear you. Can you?
Okay, this
This Commissioner Von Gashri. I have one question to ask. Several questions actually. One question is,
Okay, Ms. Montgomery, Commissioner, can you hold tight for just one moment? Let me finish collecting the attendance, and then I'll come back to you. Is that fine?
that's fine.
Okay, one moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have 202421.
Kim Harrod.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name, Kim. You said Kim?
Harrod. Harrod, as in David.
Got you. Thank you, Ms. Harrod.
You're welcome.
Okay. And then I have a 202528.
This is Peggy Distro.
Peggy Disserow. Can you spell your last name for me, Ms. Disserow? I just want to make sure I have it right.
Yes, it's D is in David, I is in ice, S is in Sam, R is in red, O is in only, E is in Ebery. And I know you're going to come back to us, but you can't see any slides on the telephone, and I really would like to get a copy of the slides to look at them.
Yes, and I do wanted to make note of that. We did have documents printed for all residents, and which should have been delivered today. It's my understanding,
Right.
speaking with the property manager, that these slides were not delivered. So they are available on our website if you would like to go on the website and take a look at that. However, we will make sure that we provide the slides after this meeting, probably tomorrow morning, but we did have them in hand and on their way. So I'm not sure what the hiccup was with why you all didn't receive them. So I do want to apologize for that. And, but hopefully you were able to follow.
That would be great to get them tomorrow. So, to see what he's talking about.
Absolutely, Mrs. Rowe. Okay. And I'm going to just mute you and then grab the names, and then I'll come back for Q&A.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I have the 202531. If you're on the line, if you want to leave us your name, 202531.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I'm sorry, I had you on mute as well. This is
That's
Kendall
okay.
Moore.
Kendall Moore. Thank you, Ms. Moore. I'm going to go ahead and mute you until we're going to come back to you for Q&A.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, and then I have another person calling by telephone. Unfortunately, the number is blocked, so I can't see it. But if I haven't called your number and you're calling by telephone, by landline or mobile, you're unmuted. If you would like to provide your name. I have a caller that has called in, user number 7. I don't see any telephone digits. It looks like the telephone number is blocked. So if you'd like to leave your name for the attendance record, you are unmuted. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mute that line back. And then DCHA staff, just FYI, we're gonna get started. So feel free to jump in there if it's a question that pertains to your respective area. All right, so I know we have a representative from Councilwoman Nadeau's office. So Ali Bobak,
Hi, yes,
do
can
you
you
have
hear
any
me?
questions? Yes, I can hear you.
I do not have any questions. Just thank you again. And if it's okay, I was just going to quickly give my phone number in case anybody on the call wanted to reach me afterwards. It's 202-531-5186. And again, this is Ali Bobak from Councilwoman Nadeau's office.
Thank you so much. We'll put that in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So one moment while all right. Alex, are you able to throw that into the chat while I call on the rest of these folks?
I didn't quite catch the last 4 digits. It was 202-531.
5186.
5186. Perfect.
Right.
Take care of it.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bobak. I'm gonna go ahead and mute your line.
Thank you.
All right. Then I have Commissioner Bangosri. All right. Your line is unmuted, Commissioner. Do you I know you said you had several questions.
Just quick several questions. Number one, why is it that the residents have to relocate and can't stay really on site while the work is being done? Number two, relocation. Where are you planning on relocating them to, and how long would it take for them to relocate back to Colorado? And why is it a 15-year? Why is it a 15-year life cycle? How come, being that affordability is such a gentrification crisis, and one of the goals of the housing authority is to provide sustainable living, why do we not look at a 99-year lease agreement or agreement which would allow Colorado to exist more than 15 years, being that the RAD regulation actually states maximum seemed like it was 20.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let us go ahead and answer maybe the first relocation questions. Jonathan, do you want to take that question?
Yep, I'm certainly happy to, and thanks for the questions. So the first question was about why is relocation required here, and it's related to the scope of the renovations. So there are going to be sort of a full renovation of the kitchens and bathrooms. Essentially, those will be offline for some period of time, and in order to maintain a quality of life where you have working toilets and sinks and stove and a refrigerator. It's not living through a kitchen or bathroom renovation is not something that we think we want to put residents through. And so what we really want to do is get residents back to the property as quickly as we can. And we think by temporarily relocating residents, it will actually allow the work to go faster overall and will limit the overall duration of the relocation that's required.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in there. Commissioner, this is Alex Morris. How are you?
Hi, Alex.
Hi. So in addition to that, I want to point out that as we've been looking at the scope of work, Ontario is one of the projects where we have a very relatively small scope compared to other projects in the Melvo. So it's going to be, as Jonathan said, a duration of weeks, not months of relocation. It's really, you're talking about someone being out of their apartment maybe for 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks at the worst. They can't be in there during the time because, as Jonathan said, there won't be a functioning kitchen or bathroom in there when the unit's being rehabbed. So we have to provide accommodations that provide cooking and, bathroom facilities. And that's why the relocation is necessary. The question of where, we're still working that out. We're actually working on the plans for the relocation for all of the Melvo properties currently. And we have a very limited number of vacant units, which we may make habitable to be used as temporary units, but that won't solve the whole problem. So we're still looking at solutions, including possibly long-term stay hotels or other places in the DCHA portfolio if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Your last question was about 15-year life cycle. I'll start that, and if I could get some support from Ms. Powell from OGC, I'd just like to dive into that. I took a look at your question from yesterday about the 15 years. In the resolution, the 15 years was listed as the minimum duration of the HAP contract. That's not what we're going to be doing in terms of providing affordability. It's simply the minimum duration of a HAP contract. They can be anywhere between 15 or 20 years. I don't know what the HAP contract would be for this, but
I'll go.
Go ahead.
So, and the as Alex said, initial term at least 15 years, and one of the things, Commissioner, that HUD requires is that both parties agree to the renewal. So there'll be another 15 years. And we may, in fact, as you indicate, have a 99-year ground lease, to ensure affordability. And then the life cycle question, though, I do think that is actually also getting back to the long-term viability. And so that's pretty typical that when we're doing major rehab that we're looking to ensure that the units can have like a 15-year viability somewhere in that that time frame. So I think we're looking to have the 15-year viability. We're looking to have the renewal as HUD requires for both parties to renew the HAP contract. And we may also be looking at a long-term ground lease as well, 99 years. So all of those things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Thanks,
question.
Commissioner. All right, next I have Elaine Du Bois.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am. Do you have any questions or comments?
fine right now.
Okay, thank you. Kim Harrod, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Being as though I lived in Southeast and Southwest for 17 years under DC Housing Authority and finally made it back to Northwest where I was originally raised, and I can be closer to my mom. I don't want to be relocated back to Southeast or Southwest, even if it's 2, 3, 4 weeks. So that's my concern right now.
Okay.
Thank you. We understand that, and we understand that leaving your neighborhood can be very disruptive, even for a short duration of time, and we're very sensitive to that. So thank you for your comment, and we will work to try to ensure that we don't have to relocate you completely out of your neighborhood, but we're still working on that plan. So give us some time, and then we'll be able to talk with you more about that in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And this is also Debbie with relocation. I just want to let you know that that also is what the one-on-one surveys are for. So we can really dive into what your personal needs are, and that way we can really know where you need to, where you can go, where you can't go, what accommodations you may need. So this is not a cookie cutter approach. Like I said, we're really making sure that we talk to each resident and really assess your needs personally. And so just know that we understand that each person has a variety of needs, and we'll be individually coming to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Ms. Harrod. All right, I think I have now Miss Peggy Disrael.
Yeah, that's me. Hello?
Yes, ma'am, you're unmuted. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. I think I have they're real quick, but 3 or 4. Okay. The thing that Kim said, I really, for some reasons, before I moved here, I was involved in a really bad fire, and I developed a couple of type of disabilities that I don't really want to talk about on the phone, but I need to discuss it. And I really need to stay in the same community somewhere not far from where I'm at because of different doctors and different things that I have to attend. Okay. And we can discuss. Yes.
Sorry, this is Deborah Jackson again. So this is a perfect example of something that we would talk about on one-on-one. So anything that's specific to you and your situation, health-wise, again, if you have kids in school, whether you have pets, anything you can think of, that's where we really drill down on an individual level to make sure that this move is not going to be a hardship to you. We really try to make sure that this is a smooth transition. So I'm not sure if I met you before. I used to be a community navigator, but we are definitely in tune.
I wasn't here when you were the navigator. I've been here almost 2 years now.
Okay. So I just missed you, but we definitely will sit down and have a conversation with you and make sure that all your needs are being met.
Okay, the other question is, I heard the gentleman say, if that is a true statement, that because of the parish doing here, it's not going to be very long time, 4 weeks at the most. And if it's 4 weeks at the most, then you wouldn't have to move everything out of the apartment, right?
Jonathan, you want to, I think we're doing the flooring at this building, correct?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't say that on here.
So yeah, the intent is floors and walls, and so moving furniture and other personal belongings out of the units is important for allowing that work to happen. As Deborah was covering in her presentation, we will take care of all that moving for you, boxes, and we'll hire professional movers. And we'll be able to report back as we get closer and work through the details. Specifics of that of those logistics.
So, and if I could just jump in. Oh, I'm sorry.
On the information that I received, it doesn't have floors. So are you saying that floors has been added to the interior improvements where now on the paperwork that we received, it only has wall repair, painting, and cleaning of ducts? Is this something that has been added after we got this?
This is Mrs. Glenn, and that paperwork, I will definitely make sure it's delivered to you tomorrow so you'll be able to see it. But they did mention kitchen floors and the bathrooms as well for renovation. So I'll get that to you so you'll have that full package and be able to see that.
Here's what we should do.
Hello, sir. I'm sorry, but I must have a different kind of paper because bathrooms and kitchen is not even on the paperwork that I was given.
Right. That's a separate piece of paper I'm going to bring to you tomorrow. It's a small packet for you to be able to see everything that you just saw tonight on his screen. Okay. But I will bring that over to all of you guys and hand deliver it to you tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I had a partial thing here.
No, what happened, we received the full packet that when they first sent out, and I thought they were delivered today. I talked with Mr. Moody, and there was someone that was supposed to deliver them today. But I will assure you that I will be there tomorrow with that packet that you just saw on the screen, so you'll be able to see all of that. Okay?
I'm sorry, but we couldn't see any of the things on the screen. It does not show on the telephone call.
Right.
So we didn't see any of that.
So you'll be able to see what he said, those words that he said. You'll be able to see it tomorrow. But I'll get those to you. Okay.
Okay. The last question for right now, and I'll wait for the next meeting for the rest, is after this RAD is completed, who's going to own this property?
That's a good question. You want to go ahead, Jonathan or Alex?
Do you want to go back to the chart?
Yeah, sure. I'll put the chart up on the screen.
The presentation.
Yeah.
But she can't see the screen, so we'll just have to walk through it.
But it'll be part of the recording, though, and I think that'll help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who will own this property after the RAD construction and innovations are completed? Who will the owner of this property be?
He's trying to answer you now. He's trying to answer you.
So this is Andrea. I'm going to start. So there's going to be, and this is part of the presentation that you'll get a copy of. There will be a limited partnership or an LLC created that will own all of the units of Melvo. And that will be controlled by a DCHA entity called, and you'll see this tomorrow, Melvo GP LLC. That is related to, it's controlled by DCHA. So you'll have one, it's harder just because you can't see the chart, but you'll see it tomorrow. One LP, limited partnership, and then there's going to be a general partner controlled by the Housing Authority. And then there'll be an investor. So those two together will own the properties. One of the things that Jonathan went over is management-wise, DCHA will continue to manage both your property, Ontario, as well as the other Melville property. So even though it'll look a little bit different on paper, HUD says we can't enter into a HAP with ourselves, so we have to create another entity. And as Jonathan was explaining, we are looking to an outside source to provide the funding to do this work at the Melville site. So they become part of the ownership, but DCHA has control through this general partner. It was called a general partner, and you'll see it when you get the chart. And certainly if you have other questions, you can reach back out or also give us a call, and we can walk through it through it again.
Okay, excuse me 1 second. I understand you're saying who's going to control it, who's going to be the management, and management can change from an owner. What I really want to know, that I don't think the question was answered, is who's going to be the owner of this building after the renovation?
So it's going to be a new entity, as we were indicating. HUD requires, before we can enter into a project-based HAP contract, it has to be a different entity. So it's going to be something called Melvo Limited Partnership. And that's made up of 2 entities, a general partner that's a DCHA entity, as well as an investor entity. And it'll be clear when you...
So housing will not be the owner. DCHA will not be the owner of this property, or HUD.
Not in the name of DCHA. One of our projects that we have already converted to RAD is covered on Columbia Road, also in Northwest. And that is a similar situation where we created an entity that's controlled by the housing authority so that we could have a separate entity to enter into the housing assistance payment contract, because HUD will not allow us to have a contract between DCHA and DCHA. So that's an example of where we have done this before. And this one is, has some similar aspects, but we also are seeking outside funding. And so that's the way, when Jonathan went through the need for the money, that's how it comes in.
Andrea, I just wanted to emphasize one point that you made.
Okay.
That was that DCHA will control the entity. And so although we're not going to be the named owner of the property, we are going to be controlling the entity, and we are going to be managing and maintaining the site day to day.
Yep. Yes, and it'll become clear when she gets the chart that shows the general partner.
So I guess at the next meeting, my question would be how do you define control? DCHA, HUD, or whatever going to control it? They're not the owners. I don't know how you're defining control.
What we mean by that is
control.
Yeah.
You said well, yeah.
Yeah. I think what we should do is we've responded to your question as best we can on the phone. I think what we should do is write it out, and you're going to get a written copy of the questions and answers that we provide. So we'll write it out, and we'll make sure that you get a copy in writing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Disrael. I'm gonna go ahead and mute your
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Let's see. And that actually is it. I'm gonna unlock the 2. I'm gonna unmute the 2 lines that I don't have names for. And so if your name hasn't been called and you have a question, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute the 2 lines that I see here, and you can have. So their lines are unmuted of the names that don't have on their attendance.
Hello.
Right? Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. My question was, you say you have a few vacant apartments that you're thinking about relocating people to. Do you know where they're located?
We have a handful of units. I don't know exactly how many, Jonathan. I don't know if you have that information.
At different properties, or?
Well, yeah, they're scattered across the property, all the Melvo properties. Jonathan, do you have any information you want to provide for that, or?
Information up. I don't have it off the top of my head. One thing that we are, though, advancing with the general contractor is that phasing includes full buildings. So Ontario is just one building. Other properties within Melvo, like Montana and Lincoln Road, have multiple buildings. We want to make sure that when contractors come in, they're on site for as short a period as possible, and then allowing residents to move back. That's really, at the end of the day, our goal is to bring you back as quickly as we can. So even
Jonathan,
if there are...
I just want to correct the record. I think you said Lincoln had multiple. Lincoln does have multiple buildings technically, but I think you might have meant Elvin's is a better example of multiple.
Elvin's is too. Yeah, Lincoln has in the apartment building and the townhome building next door. But I guess that's a long-winded way of saying the relocation needs will for Ontario will not be another unit within Ontario because of that sort of whole building phased approach.
Okay. And so my second question is, do you have any idea what hotels you will be doing contracts with during the renovation?
We do not yet, and that's one of the areas that we're really turning our attention to, and that will be based on kind of availability and geographic proximity is something that we've touched on is important as part of the overall relocation strategy to make sure that the impact is as little as possible. So that's one thing that we will be advancing over the coming months, and we'll be coming back to you with additional detail on.
Okay. And my final question is, during the relocation, because I will be one of the ones that will probably choose a hotel, how would you all provide storage for our furniture, or how would that work? Because we just got settled in. We just moved in and got settled in, and now we have to move out.
The question, Jonathan, was about storage for furniture. If she decides and we are able to get a hotel room for her, does her furniture go into storage when she goes to the hotel?
Right, and it does. And if Deborah wants to unmute and add any additional detail.
Sure. So it just depends on the scope of the work and what needs to be moved. And so, we do regret to let you know that yes, you will have to we'll have to put your stuff in storage. But again, it all depends on the renovation schedule, and we'll know more in the upcoming weeks, and we'll be reaching out to you more on a personal level and to discuss with you what needs to be packed up and moved.
Okay. Because I do know that it is 2 vacant apartments. I think it's 2 or 3 vacant apartments. It wouldn't be possible to just move vacant people from apartment to apartment while the renovations are being done in their unit?
Correct. And that's, like I said, we'll be coming back with additional detail about the relocation options that are available. But in terms of the overall objective of getting the renovations completed across each building as quickly as possible and allowing all residents to move back, that is the approach that the Housing Authority is taking.
Okay.
And
thank you.
And just for the record, so can we have your name again?
Kendall Moore.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Okay, and I'm gonna unmute one more time. I have another caller I don't have a name for, and so I'm gonna unmute you. If you haven't had the opportunity to have your name called, your line is unmuted. You can have the floor. Doesn't appear to be anyone on that line. And so if I've omitted anyone, please feel free to unmute yourself. Or if you have any additional questions, you can unmute yourself and ask at this time. Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining the call this evening. As Ms. Glenn mentioned, we do apologize for not having the presentation in front of you. However, she will make sure that you have the presentation and documents that we went over on today's call to you tomorrow. And therefore, if you have any questions or comments about what you actually are getting delivered, you can reach out to us on the transformation plan line. It's an email inbox that is checked pretty regularly. And so if you want to email us, you can email us at transformationplan@dchousing.org, or you can give us a call. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to find this number again, which I have not had luck finding it. 1 second. There we go. Thank you so much, Alex. Or you can give us a call and leave a voicemail message at 202-996-8526. So that is the best way to, if you have any immediate feedback or comments or questions, that's the best way to have someone reach back out to you. You will be getting a follow-up call also from our staff, just making sure that you've have received all of your documents and that you're prepared to join the next meeting in 2 weeks. So with that, Jonathan, Alex, or Andrea, if you don't have any additional comments, I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight virtually, and have a wonderful evening.
I just wanted to mention that I just dropped that information into the chat. It will be recorded as part of the presentation in addition to the information on the print.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.